Hi there, it's Kalymnios here from ThoughtGym.com and welcome to today's video. This yoga sequence is really just a lower body stretch today, so not going to be a flow class or anything like that, but it's a good one to do when you wake up first thing in the morning, or perhaps once you've just come in from a run or a cycle or something like that. This would be a nice routine for you. So we're going to start straight away in downward dog. So coming into downward dog, maybe you want to start off through coming through tabletop. Hands can be underneath the shoulders or just a little bit further forward. Fingers nice and spread, index finger or middle finger pointing forward, toes tucked, elevating the hips and bringing the chest towards the thighs. Keeping nice downward dog here, bent leg downward dog. You're bringing your head between the elbows and rotating those biceps forward as much as you can, while at the same time slight pigeon toe in the feet, and then maybe you're straightening one leg then the other. This is a nice full body stretch in fact, which is good from literally the heels all the way to the wrists and the fingers. So this is a nice one to incorporate all the time. But coming into some kind of movement here, especially if it's first thing in the morning that you're doing this and you're still a little bit cold, it can be nice to warm up the legs a little bit, but don't go overboard with this. And then from here, inhale the right leg up towards the sky, three-legged dog, and then step that right leg between the hands. If it doesn't come all the way through without swinging it through, just place it somewhere on the mat, help it the rest of the way with your hand, coming into a long lunge. From here, just rocking forwards and backwards 5 or 6 times, maybe even 10 times. Again, just getting a bit of movement into that joint. Then lower the left knee towards the ground. And you can flatten the back foot as well. From here, inhale the arms up towards the sky, and then lowering the right hand and reaching the left hand up and over. So we're stretching the left side of the body out, yes, but we really want to focus on the lower body today. So we're thinking about this left hip flexor, we're drawing forwards, while at the same time, before we draw forwards, we're tucking the pelvis under. So we're not going to our full extreme of the pose, but we're tucking the pelvis under, we're reaching up and over, and then we bring the hips forward slightly. Now that, together with the arm, is going to create a little bit more of a stretch in that front left hip flexor, which is what we want, rather than not having the arms here and just leaning into it la-di-da-di like this, okay? So we tuck the pelvis under, we reach up and over, and then literally you don't need to go very far, at least I don't, in order to find that stretch there. So stretching the hip flexor out here. Now we want to hold these for, I used to say rule of thumb, hold it for as many seconds as you are old. Okay, so if you're 20 years old, hold it for 20 seconds. If you're 40 years old, hold it for 40 seconds. But truth be told, 30 to 60 seconds is a good amount of time. You know, if you can do more, great. Even up to 2 minutes, 3 minutes can be good. But I would say not more than 3 minutes. Yeah, you can do yin classes, maybe hold for 5 minutes. But it really depends how much time you've got available, okay? And we're not like super warm at the moment anyway, but you know, a minute or so is good. But I'm not counting, so it's going to be anywhere between 30 and 60 seconds. And then we come back to our starting position and then push back onto our heel, straightening that right leg, bringing the toes and the foot towards the shin, drawing the hips parallel, not sitting all the way onto our heels here, but keeping the hips over the knee. Obviously I've got a few mats here, so my knee is quite comfortable, but if it's not comfortable for you, you can roll your mats or put a cushion underneath your knee. That's totally fine too. And again, so here you may be feeling something a little bit here, but maybe you're feeling it more up in the upper leg here. So again, these are really good for runners, cyclists, things like that, as well as waking up in the morning. And again, experiment with what happens when your foot, if it turns out slightly, if you can straighten it a little bit. You should feel, I mean, the whole point with yoga is you start to have a little bit of self-inquiry of your body. So even though the teacher or the instructors may guide you to certain things, you know, it's up to you to be inquisitive and figure out, oh, what happens if I do this and what happens if I do that? Obviously within some level of control, so you don't take anything too extreme that shocks the body into an injury of sorts, but you want to be experimental here. Yeah, coming back forwards, and again tucking the toe, and then again one more time just rocking forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. And then we're going to come into downward facing dog one more time, and again pedaling through the feet here, bringing one heel down and the other heel down, rotating those biceps and elbow creases forwards, looking between the feet or the knees or the navel, and shooting that tailbone up to the top corner of the room or the sky before planting down with the right foot, inhaling the left foot up nice and high, and then stepping that left leg all the way through into that long lunge, okay? Help it the rest of the way if you need to before you start coming into this rocking motion, okay? So you'll notice that my knee is over the ankle. That's really what we want to be aiming for here. Once we've done about 5 to 10 of these rocks forwards, or however many you feel like you need, lower that right knee down, flatten the foot if you wish, inhale the arms up, and then we're going to bring the left hand down. So before we reach over, because it's easy not to get the hip position right here, think about tucking that hip under, then reaching up and over, pushing down with the left hand, and then drawing the whole body forwards whilst keeping that hip integrity going. So stretching and breathing. I'm not really cueing any breaths today. Again, this is about self-inquiry, so this is for you to inquire where the breath feels good in terms of when you breathe in, when you breathe out, where you direct that breath to. I would normally suggest directing the breath visually in your mind to maybe the place that you're trying to stretch. I know there's no lungs down there, but when you put your focus there and you release and relax, it tends to release and relax in that position. So, and again, I'm not really counting today. This is more of a tutorial to show you what to do, so you can count your own things after your runs and whatever, cycles and sleeps and stuff, and you can figure out whether you want 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, something like that. Good. Inhale up, and releasing the hands either side of that front foot. Rooting down through that front heel, starting to straighten that left leg, sinking back slightly. Again, from here, bringing that foot towards you as you place a little bit of pressure on that right knee, and then keeping those hips straight. You should feel something maybe along the hip flexor, not hip flexor, sorry, maybe along the outer left thigh here, maybe lower down a little bit, maybe even a tingling in the feet. All perfectly normal, natural. You're bringing your chest maybe down towards, but without rounding your back too much. And coming forwards, tucking the toes, and again rocking forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. And then stepping back, downward facing dog. And then walking the feet forwards, inch by inch. Coming into a somewhat forward fold, but here we're going to come up to halfway. Here, what I want you to think about is, with a straight back, but trying to get the stretch coming from the hamstrings rather than the lower back when we come down. So sometimes we can fold down and we we feel that fold, but really it's coming from the lower back. And I want it to come from the hamstrings and the glutes, which means we need to come halfway here first. Well, this is the way that I find best. So come to halfway. Now I have a tendency to come onto my heels a bit. So if we stick to this L shape, because it's like an L shape here, and we lean forward slightly onto our balls of our foot, we should find, or at least I find, that I'm finding more of that stretch in the glutes and in the upper hamstrings. So from there, I aim to keep that back flat as I lean forwards and start to fold down. And now I'm only get to here, right? I'm not going to look to bring the neck down or anything like that yet, because what I'm trying to focus on is the stretch at the top of the legs rather than in the lower back, if that makes sense. So we'll hold it here, finding that stretch in the upper legs. You can do anything you want with your hands. You can hover them a little bit, you can put them on your feet, you can put them on the floor, maybe all the way up into your thighs. Yeah. And then to come out of that, I would bend the knees, tuck the chin, and roll up nice and slowly, vertebra by vertebra. Bring the shoulders up and round on the ears, just to mobilise those, forwards and backwards. Okay, the next one we're going to do is more designed for the IT band here. It's kind of a new one for many of you maybe, and it can be a bit tricky. So, most of us are familiar with the stretch where we take the foot behind us and we bring the heel towards the bottom, keeping the knees together to stretch out the front of the thigh and sometimes the hip flexor. Similar to that, but we take the opposite hand onto the leg. So we take the leg like this. So your left hand, if we get the balance right, will take the right foot. Now you start to bring the right knee behind the left knee. And the important thing here, as you pull the heel closer towards the bottom, is to engage the glutes, so tense the bottom muscles, and lift that right hip up slightly, whilst pulling across here. So we're engaging both glutes, but we're lifting the right hip up slightly, and we're pulling the right knee behind the left knee, whilst bringing the heel towards the bottom. It's a bit tricky, and sometimes I feel it there, but mostly I feel it a bit further down, but that's actually still releasing everything there. And sometimes I feel it on the front there. So you have to play around with it, whether your knee is, because if your knee is next to it, it's going to slightly feel different than if your knee is more behind. If you engage the glutes, it's going to feel different. If you raise that right hip, it's going to feel different. So you need to start thinking about, rather than relying on instruction and teacher stuff, to start figuring things out for yourself and just experimenting, right? The teacher or the instruction or the video is the guide, but you really want to think about things for yourself. Okay, well, if you need to hold on to something, that would be a good idea as well, to take the pressure off having to balance at the same time. Okay, and then releasing nice and slowly out of that. I always find it much trickier with my left leg. We're always slightly imbalanced, but because of an injury on the meniscus, this has become very tight, which is why this is a very good stretch for me. So I'm a little bit more cautious on this side with what I do on the knee. So again, starting to bring that knee behind if you can, bringing the heel towards the bottom if you can. Hold on and balance on something, that would be good. Then engaging the glutes. Okay, by tensing that, you help release the opposite muscle group effectively, but also gives you a bit of stability. And then raising that left hip slightly, because you'll have a tendency to pull it down as you pull in the leg diagonally across. That's why we do that, to keep them a bit more level. Okay, now on this one, for example, this side I feel it differently, and I feel it more in kind of the knee. But what I have found is if I do this stretch regularly, I do feel better. Especially, I notice when I sit cross-legged, that's where I get the knee pain. Any kind of flexing and twisting of the leg, that's where I feel things. So it tends to be that this exercise, or this stretch, can help me. Okay, and the tricky thing is the balance, so I would advise doing this against a wall or a chair or something, so you don't have to think about that at the same time. Okay, and then again, slowly coming out of that one. Good. Shaking that off, taking a quick downward dog vinyasa, so inhale, arms up towards the sky, exhale, fold all the way down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, stepping back, taking downward facing dog. Good. And holding your downward facing dog. Breathing in and breathing out. And then again, starting to inch your feet forwards towards the front of the mat. Coming into a forward fold. One more time, and then inhaling, halfway lift. So get that flat back. Think about keeping that back flat, shifting the weight to the ball of the feet slightly, and then sinking down with that flat back. So the stretch is coming from the legs and not the lower back as you fold further down into your forward fold. Okay, so this is very similar to our forward fold when we sit on the floor and we try and keep our back straight. What I've realised is much of yoga is the same few stretches but just done in different positions. So this is one example of that, just a forward fold that we do seated, but we're doing it standing instead. Good, and then again, bending the knees, rolling up vertebra by vertebra. Next stretch for the legs is again similar. We're going to hold this time right hand and right leg. So we bend the knee. Again, similar to this, but we take the leg out slightly. Some of you may do this anyway, but again, the trick here is to engage both glutes and lift that right hip up slightly. Now, as you do that, turn the leg in slightly, okay, so, or bring the back foot up slightly. Definitely do with holding on to something here. That's why I have to look down and not at the camera, because I find it easier to balance usually when you look at a fixed point on the floor that's not moving. You can look at a fixed point on the horizon as well. It's a little bit harder though. But when I look at the camera, because I'm imagining you watching me right now, I find it harder. So that's why I'm looking down. Okay. So you're holding, balancing, stretching, yeah, and releasing. Good. So feel it maybe in your standing leg as you're leaning over, especially if you're not balancing on something. So again, firstly come into it in a nice safe way. Coming into just a normal hamstring stretch. Then we come up about 45 degrees here. We engage both glutes and we lift the left hip up slightly and then pull or open up the hip slightly here as well, whilst pulling the heel closer towards the bottom if you can manage it. Okay, so again, think about your own body, think about just moving things half an inch up, down, rotating, and just see if you can find something for yourself. Everyone is slightly different. I can't quite dictate what you are going to feel compared to what I'm feeling, and it depends on your body, your activity, and all sorts. Good. And then releasing, Again, nice and slow, coming out of that, shaking both legs. One more flow, or half flow I suppose, inhaling up, exhaling, swan diving, straight legs, straight back, all the way down. Inhale, halfway lift, flat back, again thinking about shifting the weight forward to the front of the feet, then releasing the hands down, stepping the right leg back and then the left leg, coming into downward facing dog. And from here, just walking the feet outside of the hands, coming into a Yogi Squat, Malasana, as we lower the hips down and bring the hands into prayer position in front of the heart center, knees coming out, and then coming all the way down to our seat. And from here we're going to come into a figure 4 with the legs, so crossing the right ankle over the left knee, pushing the right knee away from you. Now different variations of this, and again this is about self-inquiry, I think that's the theme of the class. You can come low down onto your back, you can thread the hand through to the left thigh and you can pull towards you like this, and you can even try and bring the nose towards your right ankle and you can pull like that. Other options are to stay seated like this. This might be way enough for some people. Sometimes you can come up and find something this way, or even pushing forwards, okay? So you're off your bottom, but you're still hovering off. So it kind of just depends. Or you can just stay on the bottom and just bring your chest forwards. This is also quite a nice one. Again, this is a seated pigeon variation. You can do this while seated in your chairs, at your desk, but the leaning forward is kind of crucial, trying to bring the leg here towards the chest. So even if you're doing this lying down, that's where you're going to probably feel more of a benefit along the outer right glute. But engage the right foot here, so that's flexed, and lean forwards whilst pushing the right knee away from you as well. So this one right now feels quite good for me, so I'm going to stick to this one, and you do whatever works for you. Yeah. And then releasing out of that one, and then again we're going to come onto the left side, so maybe come a little bit further back to begin with if you were doing what I was doing before, or maybe even coming onto your back and crossing, because this might be easier for you, and then you might be strong enough to just, just to do this. If this is fine, experiment, coming into a different position. Maybe you want to hover. This is quite nice on this leg to hover, and then allow that left knee to come out. Now once I've hovered a little bit, now I feel like, okay, yeah, I want to bring the seat down to the ground. Again, keeping that foot flexed, and I'm pushing that left knee away as much as possible, and then I'm bringing my chest forward as much as possible. So I'm doing my best here. This is quite nice. So we've done the IT band, we've done the hip flexors, we've done the glutes. So quite a full amount on the lower body here we've done today. Yeah. And again, it's up to you. Say you've got, so these are like we've done about 6 or 8 stretches. If you do one on each side, 1 minute, should take you about 8 minutes. 10 minutes. So if you've got 15 minutes, do it 2 minutes on each side, something like that. Okay, and then releasing out of that. Bringing the knee in towards the chest, giving yourself a good old hug. Okay, maybe hold underneath the knees, maybe hold above the knees, squeezing yourself tightly. Maybe have the knees separated, squeeze again. And then bringing the feet together and the knees out into Bakasana legs. Just allow we're going to take our Shavasana like this. So it's not a typical Shavasana, although if you want to take a typical Shavasana, take it, that's fine. But otherwise, we're going to do it slightly differently today. Feet together, knees out, palms still facing up and away from you, eyes still closed, breath still soft, thoughts still come and go. That's totally fine, but just the legs are the only variation today. Start to wiggle the fingers and wiggle the toes, and then we're going to just cradle the legs with the hands as we bring the knees up together, and then straightening the legs one at a time. Bring the arms overhead to the floor behind you, stretching from your fingertips to your toes, maybe stretching the right side of your body out and stretching the left side of your body out, and bringing the knees in towards the chest. Hugging yourself tightly, telling yourself something nice about yourself. Now you can, option is to either roll to your left or your right, coming into the fetal position, or as we're going a little bit off script today, maybe again keeping the eyes closed and your attention inwards, your focus towards your third eye, the centre of your forehead area. Maybe we tuck the chin and we just rock forwards and backwards slightly, massaging the lower spine. Before, after maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 rocks, we come up to sitting, or if you've come through the fetal position, you can do that, but coming to sitting cross-legged on your mat, eyes closed, attention inwards, hands into prayer position in front of the heart centre, offering up a little bit of gratitude, support and compassion to the rest of the world. Then raising your prayer towards your third eye, we ask that we have the wisdom to watch our thoughts. Lowering your prayer towards your mouth or your throat chakra, we ask that we have the restraint to watch our words, especially when dealing with other people, but also the compassion to be mindful of our own internal dialogue. And then finally, lowering our hands towards our heart centre, we ask that we have the strength and courage to do whatever is right and necessary, even when it's not the most preferred or desired path. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing along with me with this, well, not really a full yoga practice, but a lower body stretch. Hopefully that's been of value to you. Please do connect with me on social media. I am the Thought Gym on all social media platforms, but especially check out YouTube. I'm active on Instagram as well, but YouTube, there are tons and tons of videos to help you with your mindset, your health, your resilience, yoga, personal development, success principles, all that sort of stuff. So check that out, as well as head to thethoughtgym.com where there's a special gift waiting for you. So thoughtgym.com and social media, and I'll see you on the mat very, very soon. Until next time, namaste.